everyone, this is Leela, and here's my son Taylor,
Good evening.
and my Malachi. He's coming to hear the story. The story, I'm sure it's from a while back in the railroad, the African going from one
From one place
place
to
to
another,
another, yeah,
yeah.
by train. So it's called Henry's Freedom Box, and since I know that we're getting closer to Christmas, I was thinking would be a good thing to read.
Uh,
A true story from the Underground Railroad. Um, There's also named Ellen Levine and Kadir Nelson. That must have had the part to do with this book.
mhm.
Um, Henry Brown wasn't
Was
sure
sure.
how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their
Oh
birthdays.
wow, that's dark.
hmm Henry dreams of a world when his life belongs to him, but when his family is sold, he risks everything for what he knows is right. With strength and conviction of the best kind of hero, Henry makes a harrowing journey in a wooden crate and mails himself to freedom. In the powerful true story, Ellen Levine weaving the extraordinary event of Henry Box Brown's life with poignancy and grace. Carter Nelson luminous paintings shine their lights into the soul of each character. Together, they make an inspiring account unforgettable.
That doesn't
So,
that sound amazing?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's no pictures on this one, so we're gonna keep going. And so, yeah,
Henry's Freedom Box.
yeah. And in between it, there's by Ellen Levine, illustrated by Kadir Nelson, Scholastic Press, New
New
York.
York.
Did you want to read some and write? I read some or
Sure.
something. Okay.
Henry Brown was not. Wait, what? Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays.
And that's what he said at the
Such
beginning.
a sad fact.
There he is. This is Henry. Yeah. And we are both part black, so
Yep. Even though we're a bit white.
we're a lot whiter. Yeah, my mom is darker, and her
Mm.
father was even darker. So. I thought mom looked like more an African than.
Yeah. It was more your dad's side, right?
Well, I heard my mom saying that her mother was white and her father was really, really, really dark.
What a strange mix we are.
Yeah, I know. Eh? And
Go ahead.
so, okay. Henry and his brother and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children are torn from their families.
Ouch.
Yeah, that is.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was not a happy time. One morning, the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master lay in bed with only his head above the quilt. He was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer.
Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master would set him free.
But the master said, "You are a good worker, Henry. I am giving you to my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie."
Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie. Mhm. There
Yeah.
you go.
It's too bad he didn't give him freedom.
No, I know.
Instead, you had to
It
give
was
him to
hard
his
in
son.
those days.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. So yeah, next page. Oops.
Oh, there.
I had a page there before. Okay.
Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar high above the trees. "Free bird! Happy bird!" Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves swirled in the wind.
And this is a beautiful picture too.
Well illustrated.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, there's a glare of the light that comes in here. I don't know if we can move the light a little bit
Let's see.
back, maybe.
Someone that's good?
Maybe we could turn it instead, maybe this way.
Does that work?
Let's see. Oh, now it's super dark.
Let me,
More. I wonder. May I put it maybe in the back of the?
yeah, sure. One sec.
Well, we're trying to see what would be better here.
Oh.
Yeah, that back there would be better. If you can kind of move, you can move this forward.
Yeah, I can't seem to get
All right.
further without. Oh, there we go. A little bit higher and we got good light.
Okay, right here. Okay, good. Yeah, we have it. we have it. So here we go. Here's the family.
There you go.
Yeah, that's perfect, Taylor. Thank you. That works. You can leave it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
It's good. It works.
go.
So there you go. We got everything worked out, guys.
Yep. Just got to scoot back in here.
All right.
Hmm.
Whose turn was it?
Yours.
Okay. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. Not tear that tobacco leaf, the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with a stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you.
It's horrible.
Yeah. So there you go. Here's Henry, and then there's another person behind Henry. Looks.
He
And
looks
then,
sad.
yeah, they all look sad.
At least
And then I think that's. Anyways,
at least their boss, their old boss, the
Didn't
father
beat
was
them, yeah.
nicer.
yeah, didn't beat them. I think he's the guy with the hat is the master. I'm
Just
thinking.
scoop it here.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I think he is though.
Henry
Oh.
was lonely. One day he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked, and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but the slaves didn't dare sing in the streets. Instead, he hummed all the way home.
Yeah. There you go. But I can't see, so I like to move my hand. It's like like Taylor said, we really like the illustrations. They're beautiful.
Yeah, that's a long one.
Yeah. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When both their masters agreed, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon there was a little baby, then another and another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They lived together even though they had different masters. But Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. I'm afraid he will sell our children, she said. Henry sat very still.
Oh my God, it's
That
horrible.
is, yeah.
They actually did that, and it's not
Yeah.
right.
No, I know. No.
It's bad times.
Yeah. People still treat each other bad today. Seriously.
I can sure one.
You can read the next one if you want.
Henry worked hard all morning. He tried to forget what Nancy said.
That's not easy to do.
No.
Here you go. This is Henry. Excuse me.
Oh, that's horrible.
We had a late meal. I had a late meal, so.
We both are. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No!" he cried. Henry.
No,
cried
cried Henry. Yeah.
Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco!" The boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest.
Yeah. That is horrible. Yeah. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owners shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father! Father!" Henry watched his children disappear down the road. Where was Nancy? He saw her the same moment she saw him. When he wiped away his tears, When he wiped away his tears, Nancy too was gone. Oh, that's horrible.
There we go.
Sit properly then. You're not in pain. Was it my turn?
Henry no longer sang. He could hum. He went to work, and at night he ate supper and went to bed. He tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved.
Carrying
Away everyone he loved.
Mm-hmm.
Henry knows he would never see his family again.
Yeah, he knew he wouldn't see his family again.
In English, why you do this?
Yeah, I know. Oops, forgot. Almost forgot to show the picture. Turning the page. So there's poor Henry, like, crying, depressed, not knowing what to do. I have another maybe book that's similar, but not for tonight. Okay? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Alright, I'm off the screen, but I can still read this better.
Okay, well, it's my turn?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Many weeks passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of the tree into the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. But how? As he lifted a crate, he knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man who thought slavery was wrong. They met early in the next day at the empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. It will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves, he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. What if you could and someone hears you? I will cover my mouth and hope Henry said. Yeah, okay, so cover my mouth and hope. So this is the doctor, I'm sure, that's I'm gonna show him. This must be the doctor they're talking about that wants to help them out.
It's a good thing there were some people with an actual
There
nice
are,
mind.
there is
And
always,
still is, yes.
yeah.
Oh, where is in Slovenia?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. This side up.
With, I don't know. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Smith was on the box. Oh, no. Dr. Smith wrote on the box to William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Henry would be delivered to his friends in Philadelphia. He then printed on the crate in big letters, "This side up with care."
Okay. Yeah, so there you go. This is the crate he's writing stuff on. There you go.
I got my throat.
It's okay.
You gotta get used to this.
Henry needed an excuse to stay home, or the work boss would think he had run off. James pointed to Henry's sore finger, but Henry knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened a bottle of oil of vitriol, I don't know. No, cried James. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith bandaged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock.
Ow.
Yeah, well, they're trying to, you know.
Yeah, but down to the bone is bad.
I know, but...
It's all the only option they really had. But
yeah,
still,
in those days, yeah. I'm sure he would have done anything to do. And if we were in those days, we would want to try somehow to get out of there.
Oh, yeah. The sun was not up yet when Henry climbed into the box. "Ready!" he said. James nailed down the lid.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these days, the only hearing of nailed down is the cough. Alright, where was I? Oh, yeah, Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tipped the box over and nailed the paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerks to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box onto the baggage car.
Ow!
That's gonna leave a few marks.
I hope the guy is okay, yeah. I hope the guy is okay. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again, upside down. He heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached. He thought his head would burst, but he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him.
The picture. The picture.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Taylor. I almost forgot to show the picture. Yeah. In the box, frightened and everything.
You'd also think you'd get seasick, too.
Well, it must have been. It must have been some of them that were.
That must have been awful. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm tired of standing, someone said. "Why don't we move this box and sit on it?" said another. Henry held his breath. Could they be talking about his box? Henry was pushed. The box scraped the box scraped the deck. He was now on his right side.
Now he
No,
was
now he was on his right side, now on his left. And suddenly, right side up.
at last. Oops. I better show the picture before I change the page.
Reading is hard.
Yeah, but fun. I like to read. I don't mind it.
Uh,
I don't mind reading. I
you
said
do it with another
Tuesday is story day. That's what I said. So that's what we do story day on Tuesday, and that's why I wanted to get the library cards because, yeah. Anyways,
fun to
it's a
do
big
it.
it's a big story. So
It's fun to do it with another person too.
yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
What do you think is in here? Said the first man. Mail, I guess, said the other. I'm I am mailed, thought Henry, but not the kind they imagined. Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed in a railroad car. This time, head up. He fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels.
Oh, that's not always a good idea.
No, I don't know. We'll see. That, okay.
Oh.
We're getting close to the end here.
He woke to loud knocking. Henry, are you all right in there? All right, he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. Four men smiled at him. Welcome to Philadelphia.
At last, Henry had a birthday. March 30th, 1849, his first day of freedom. And from that day on, he also had a middle name. Everyone called him Henry Box Brown. That is so cool. I like that. And the end song is really nice.
Too bad his children couldn't come along.
No, I know. Well, maybe later they did. And that's the end of the story, my friends. Yeah. So.
That was a sad book.
Well, yeah, that was difficult life. I mean, I'm not saying that life is not difficult today, but that's what was very different in those days. So yeah, and I brought a couple more books that we can be reading on the Tuesdays. Yeah. So for now, that's what I have. I also have some, like I said, I'll read some other next Tuesday. Yeah, it's the next one or before that, depending what time I have and stuff like that. All right, so thank you for listening to us. It was fun to have Taylor join. I didn't expect that. So we'll see you again.
Have a good one.
Bye for now.